Welcome to another edition of Bases and Balls with Tribe broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus, brought to you by Jennings Heating and Cooling here on WAKR. And I guess, Rosey, let's get to the point first of all and talk about the disappointment with Zach Plesac going on the disabled list. We have a fracture in the thumb. Why don't you talk about what you know at this point?
Yeah, there's still no word on exactly how long he'll be gone, but when you hear broken thumb on the pitching hand, I mean, with Roberto Perez, a catcher with a broken finger on his throwing hand, that was 8 to 10 weeks. So, not knowing what goes on down in Dayton with Dr. Graham at the examination, I gotta believe it's a couple of months for Zach, unless there's something really, really different. So that's a big disappointment, and it's going to put the Indians in a really tough spot pitching wise.
Rosey, let me ask you this, a little bit out of my arena here. Not only the recovering from a fracture as opposed to a hitter or an outfielder, he's a starting pitcher. Traditionally, how long does it take to amp back up a starting pitcher to get him ready to go coming off a situation like that?
You know what, Ray? It might be similar to what they had during the shutdown last year, which was a couple of months of the season, and then they ramped back up. But what's going to be hard for Zach is that he can do all the physical conditioning for sure, but to be able to throw with the intensity that he'd like to, and here's a guy who he's an innings eater when he's right. So you got to be really careful that you don't overdo that when he first comes back. There's a lot of tentacles to this thing, and I think to expect him to come back and be someone who pitches 7-8 innings when he's right. That might be expecting a lot. So this is going to be real interesting, not only the time missed, but then how long it takes him to get back to being Zach Plesac.
With that comes opportunities, right, Rosie? And now there's opportunities. I don't know who will get summoned up for some of those innings. I'm thinking maybe Tristan McKenzie back or some other guys. What are you hearing, or what do you think as far as some of the guys that are performing well, maybe at Columbus, that might get that opportunity?
Right. They're really short on experience and I think pitchers that they'd feel comfortable throwing into a major league rotation. McKenzie will get a start, I'm sure. Maybe this is that time where they move Cal Quantrill from the bullpen to the rotation, although he's been really, really good in the pen. So you kind of take an arm out of there, and then, does that become an issue? So, those are two names for sure. Outside of that, I know Scott Moss, they've been high on, but he's been slow to get going this season, has had some minor issues, injury related. Logan Allen has not really performed very well at Columbus, so they're kind of working through some things with him. Those are some of the names. I mean, they may dip into the Akron Ball Club, to be honest with you. If it's just a start or two, and then they feel that, look, throw a kid in there and see what happens and have the bullpen at the ready, they might even do that. And because a lot of it depends on, is a pitcher on the roster? Do they want to burn a roster spot by bringing someone who's non-rostered up and then making a move and all that? So they're taking it day by day. I know that's a cliche. We're going to take it day by day. But I think for real, like this, they have to do it right now, outside of those days where Savali and Bieber pitch. And Sam Hedges, too.
Bases and Balls, Tribe broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus, brought to you again by Jennings Heating and Cooling. On the injury front, Franmil Reyes goes down with a muscle strain, and Owen Miller gets the recall. First of all, maybe a brief update on Franmil Reyes, but let's talk about the real good, feel-good story here with Owen Miller, Rosey.
Yeah, Reyes, probably 6 to 8 weeks with that abdominal strain, and a shame because he was starting to get rolling again, and you love to ride the hot streaks with him. So they'll miss the power bat and somehow figure out a way. That's what they've been doing. So they're in another stretch where they have to do it again. But Owen Miller's intriguing. We haven't seen much yet in the games that he's played, but he certainly is intriguing based on what we saw in spring training. And it's not only what we saw in spring training, but just the way Terry Francona talked about him as a hitter. And Tito is always very reserved and cautious about heaping too much praise on a young player or pitcher in spring training, because you can be fooled for sure. But he really felt there were some things that superseded the results in spring training and make Miller a real good candidate to play well in the big leagues. And then, of course, he went and tore the cover off the ball in Columbus for 3 weeks.
With us is Jim Rosenhaus, Tribe broadcaster, bases and balls. Jimenez goes down. That means Amed Rosario, for the most part, is our shortstop. And, you know, you look at the offseason and you get him. He says, okay, he's a throw-in in that trade where he can play some other positions, maybe utility, but who knows how much we'll see of him at short. He's been pretty good for us this year, Rosey, playing some solid center field. Boy, clutch hits, and now he's pretty much the everyday shortstop.
And where would the Indians be without him right now? I would say because he settled down at short early on. When he played short, it was a struggle. He just did not. He looked like he hadn't played the position before. He looked like short was the position he was learning, not center field. But he's settled in and shown that, you know, look, he's played shortstop in the big leagues for a while now, and at the plate it's really picked up. So that's been encouraging, and I think part of it may just be, all right, this moving back and forth, the other shortstop's not here now. Go play shortstop, settle in, have some fun. And he's certainly doing that and playing well.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, clutch hits at the plate. Almost each week he's coming up with a clutch one. Okay, let's go to the back end of the bullpen here. I wanted to talk about Shaw and Clase. We've talked about Karinchak and how dynamic he has been. Shaw, to me, is a great story. I mean, maybe pitching better than he ever has. And Clase, who we knew we had some potential there with this guy, has been lights out as well. Talk about these two guys for me.
Well, Shaw's a great story, well documented now that, you know, it didn't go well in Colorado or Seattle last summer, but his time at Seattle's alternate site really came into play in a big way for him. He was able to work on some things without the pressure of being in a major league game, and it really helped. And as he said, look, I'm 3-4 years older now than I was when I was here the last time, and what he learned was to keep the stuff or even maybe change a little bit. He had to change how he went about things and recognize that his body's different. You know, how does he still throw 96, 97? He's got to do it differently than he did the first time around. And he was able to learn that. He's featuring a changeup every now and again now, which is different. So a lot for the hitter to think about when Brian Shaw's out there. And with Clase, you know, recently he's had some jams that he's had to work out of and some command issues, but he's able to get the job done more often than not. And anytime you have someone throwing 101, 102, that's impressive, and that'll go a long way.
That's nice to have. Well, listen, another edition of Bases and Balls with Tribe broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus, brought to you by Jennings Heating and Cooling. Kind enough for Rosey to take time out of his schedule and join us each week. Thanks, my friend. We'll catch back up with you again next week.
You got it, Ray.